Hey, everybody, welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeanette Dorner. I'm the Executive Director of the Nisqually Land Trust, and I'm really pleased to welcome you all to this webinar this evening. We have a super special guest with us tonight. I'm really excited to hear his story. Some of you might know just about him and not know much about the Land Trust, or some of you are longtime friends of the Land Trust and just heard a little bit from our promotion about this story. But either way, you are all welcome, and hopefully you come away from this webinar learning a little bit more and being a little more inspired tonight. So I'd like to introduce my guest, Greg Nance. Greg Nance is an ultra runner, and he is with the Run Far Foundation, which he founded and runs for supporting mental health for youth, among many other things. And Greg has an incredible story about a recent ultra run that he did. I think, Greg, you've run almost every continent in the world. You've done ultra running. Is that accurate?
A lot of running. That's right.
Yes. But more recently, closer to home, first all the way across the United States this summer, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And so then for his rest, he decided 2 weeks later that he was going to go for a local run, just a little jaunt up to the top of Mount Rainier. So we're excited to have you today. Those of you that are following along, you can watch in the chat. I think that we're going to invite folks to put in the chat. Hopefully it's enabled for all of you. If you'd like to share what your name is and where you're watching from, you're welcome to do that if that's something you'd like to share. And then later on, we're going to do a little presentation from Greg, and then Greg and I are going to chat together a little bit about what he did. And then we're going to have an opportunity later in the webinar for folks to ask questions. And so if you notice at the bottom of your Zoom window, there should be a Q&A button down there. And when if you have questions, feel free to type them into that Q&A session. And when we get to that part of the webinar, we'll go and Greg and I will walk through those and try and answer as many of those questions as we can. So without further ado, Greg, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about why are you on a webinar with the Nisqually Land Trust? What is it that you did?
Awesome. Jeanette, thank you so much for the kind intro and the opportunity here. Really appreciate it. And then Jeff and Nikki and just the full team, y'all are absolutely awesome. I promised Jeanette I was going to keep this to 18 minutes. So I've got a little timer going here. And I'm going to share some photos from a recent adventure. So let's try to share my screen. Thumbs up here. Hopefully that's going through. This is a picture of one of my heroes. This is Billy Frank Jr., who's an environmental leader, tribal rights leader, ultimate conservationist, and mentor. And as I learn more about his story, I'm just super inspired for all that he's done. And it's just this amazing legacy for the Nisqually Nation. And I then learned there's a wildlife preserve, a national wildlife refuge named in his honor, right there between Tacoma and Olympia at the Delta of the Nisqually. After learning that, I realized I have to start this run at the sea at the National Wildlife Refuge there at the Billy Frank Jr. And so on August 5th, that's exactly what I aim to do. I drove my truck with my crew chief, Savannah, and we made our way to the Puget Sound. And my goal was to start with a foot in the water below sea level and then make our way all the way to the top of Tacoma, the top of Mount Rainier. And I realized no one had ever done this. No one was crazy enough to even try. I'm going to try to become the first Yahoo with a foot below the high tide mark at sea level and make my all the way to the top. That was the vision. On August 5th, that Friday, at sunset, I was going to start after getting a little photo or two at the Sound. We're going to make our way. And in order to do this, this is about a 75-mile run from the Puget Sound to Paradise, the parking lot there within the national park. And then if you can actually make it away to Paradise, you've got a long climb to the top, almost 10,000 vertical feet. And in total, 14,411 feet to climb and more than 85 miles to run. And so it's going to be a long effort in front of us, but that's exactly what I signed up for, to make this lifelong dream happen, in tribute to my hero, Billy Frank Jr. And so there at Billy Frank Jr. National Wildlife Refuge, we begin. The sun quickly goes down, which is a good thing because as an ultra runner, you want to stay cool. And, of course, early August, it can be quite hot. We begin this journey and, oh man, it's just so beautiful. We're running right along the river, the Thurston Bountiful Byway, these scenic highways, through this really beautiful farmland and this wonderful protected land, thanks to our friends at the Nisqually Land Trust. And I'm cruising, I'm getting into a groove. I'm trying to find my rhythm. And step by step by step, you start chipping away at a really big goal. In this case, got to run about 75 miles. And we're going to do that one step at a time. I like to call it eating the elephant one bite at a time. And that's exactly what was going through my head as we're getting to Old Pacific Highway and cracking into it. There's a lot of running in front of us. Keep it cool, keep it chill, keep moving forward. Big jolt and a big boost for me getting onto the Nisqually Reservation. I've had some really great adventures along the reservation growing up, and it's a sign of progress as we keep moving forward through really beautiful country as the stars are starting to come out. Getting to Yelm and then seeing these signs with, wow, I'm slowly but surely reeling in Mount Rainier. It's a sign that when we keep eating the elephant a bite at a time, good things happen. And that elephant is in trouble was my mentality. We're going to scoop it up. And so one step at a time, we're reeling it in. This is a long journey and you actually can't do this alone. One of my mantras as an ultra runner, best team wins. Even though I'm the Yahoo running, I've got incredible support. Our crew chief, Savannah, is in my pickup truck right here. And this is one of many refreshment breaks where I'm going to get some food down the hatch and then keep hydrating because it is pretty hot. You need a lot of, literally thousands of calories to run 75 plus miles and then to do this climb. And so this is one of our fuel stops as we go. And then eventually day comes, but you got to keep your battery charged. So we get a quick cat nap. I'm literally riding shotgun. Savannah's in the driver's seat. We're getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep on this beautiful farm road right off the Nisqually before we hit it a second day. And after some good fuel, some good rest, I'm feeling good. So I got a big smile. I'm just over halfway into this run now as daybreak comes, and I'm feeling good in part because I'm going to be joined by my buddy Andrew. Is going to pace me through 25 of the hardest miles. And this guy is a very experienced runner right there along the Nisqually himself. And it's just so much better when you're with a buddy. So best team wins. You need to surround yourself with the right folks. And that's how we're eating the elephant, with some really, really good teamwork, cruising through absolutely beautiful land with the Nisqually right there on my shoulder, and then just beautiful forest as we do it. So we are cruising through the entirety of Saturday, August 6th. And the sun starts coming down as we finally get to the national park. And this is a very, very good feeling, but it's also a reminder that I have a long way to go. There's a lot to climb after a lot of running. So we get to the park. I get a little celebratory photo as I pretend to take a nap in the street there. And then we're going to fuel. So as the sun is going down, we're back along the river and we set out a feast because this is going to be my last big dinner before running through the night and then beginning this big climb. And so with Savannah and Andrew, we're feasting, getting some protein down, getting some more carbs and glycogen to fuel the next phase. Again, along just such a beautiful place to be running. My goodness. The sun is now going down. It's Saturday night. We're in the park and now I'm running and I am dressed like a Christmas tree. I've got flashing lights so that not only drivers and people can see me, but also there's a lot of wild animals in the park and along the Nisqually. And so for safety reasons, you want to be well illuminated so that you're, safe and that so I can see the ground in front of me. I don't want to step on a root or a rock or a pothole. And so I'm well lit, trying to be safe as we keep going. And my goodness, this is like a mystical experience. The mountain is out. The stars are so bright. You can see like the peak right there. I capture, a photo as we're coming through, and then you hear the rushing river right next door. And it's just you and your thoughts as you're reeling this in. And I forget in this moment how tired I am and how steep these hills are. Oh my goodness. I know a number of us have probably driven the road up to Paradise, and it feels pretty steep in a car. It feels even steeper when you're the Yahoo out running. So my goodness, it's beautiful. In those moments, hearing that rushing river, seeing the mountaintop, that just fires me up and keeps me going. Eventually, finally, I reach the Paradise parking lot. I clock out this first phase of the run, almost 77 miles, 76.96 in 15 hours, 36 minutes. And I'm really tired, but I'm even more excited because I knew this first phase was going to be really, really hard, because a lot of that run, you can't actually see the mountain. You know, you're just going and going and going, but getting to Paradise just feels absolutely awesome. I actually finished this run. And then I'm going to get a little bit of sleep. And so I get into the truck. We name him Henry, the F-150. Big high five with Savannah. I eat a little bit, and then it's time to get a little bit more shut-eye before the next phase here, the big climb to go from all the way from the sea at Puget Sound. Now to the summit is the aim. I wake up, it's daybreak, and I have a superstition. So I always run with my lucky 12 flag in my rucksack. I know it's a weird thing. I love the Seahawks. I'm in an especially good mood after yesterday, that huge win. And I rock this 12 flag. So that is getting a little picture with the mountain for good luck, and it's going straight back in my rucksack to take me to the top. If you look closely, I have yellow shoes on now. These are actually different shoes. So I had my good road runners for the first 77 miles. And now I've got trail runners, all by Brooks, local Seattle company that makes great shoes, because you need the right footwear as you try to climb the mountain. Here we are. I'm starting on the Skyline Trail. A few of us have been out there. This is absolutely amazing. John Muir called this paradise for a reason. These wildflowers on the evergreens above the tree line, it's a mystical place. It's absolutely beautiful. With the Nisqually Glacier there above my shoulder. This is as close to heaven on earth as I found, and I'm getting the chance to get after it. I'm wearing a bigger rucksack now with all my climbing gear. I've got my ice axe there in my hand. I'm rocking my shades to protect my eyes from the UV reflected off the sun. And I've thrown on some tights as well to keep my legs warm, because you don't want to get too hot, then too cold. You want to regulate your temperature on the mountain as we do it. And so I start climbing. One of these is from the Skyline Trail. The next is after getting all the way up the Muir Snowfield, which I have a feeling a few of us have climbed. Man, that is tough. Mount Rainier has no easy elevation. You are climbing, climbing, climbing. You're working for it. And as soon as I'm up to the snow line, I'm thrown on crampons. And if you look closely at that photo, I've got these little ice cleats, crampons, and that gives us more purchase, more traction for the snow and the ice, because otherwise it's really slippery. So you need the right footwear, which we've got, and you got to keep fueling. So I am always eating, like every hour, I'm trying to get at least 300 calories down. And then I try to have a couple big meals along the way too. It makes everything easier when you've got blood sugar and glycogen to fuel you. And off in the distance, that is Mount Adams. And then we've got a little St. Helens cameo as I look out at the horizon, and I'm just munching. And so enjoying the view, enjoying a little lunch before it's time to keep climbing. One of the challenges with climbing Rainier is that it gets kind of scary. And so this is a crevasse where if you look down, you could fall hundreds and hundreds of feet, maybe even thousands. The mountain is alive. These glaciers are always moving, sometimes several inches or feet in a given day. And so they periodically open. And luckily, there's really great guides on the mountain that can help put in ladders where you can cross it a little bit more safely, but it can feel a little sketchy. And especially when you've been running for all these hours, this is a moment where I'm feeling a little sketched out, and I have to remember, why am I doing this? Well, I'm trying to go from the Puget Sound all the way to the top. I can't let a little butterfly stop me. And so in those moments, a few deep breaths, and just remind yourself, hey, I've been preparing for this for a long, long while. I got this. And one step at a time, I'm going to get across that ladder and then get safely to higher ground. So we had two really sketchy ladder crossings. These were them, but shout out to the guides on the mountain for setting it up the right way. In both these photos, I am all alone. I am actually soloing this climb from Paradise up. And so there's not a soul around. If I were to fall in, it wouldn't be good. So I do have an emergency beacon, but you got to stay on the ladder, get your way across. And you are rewarded because the views on this mountain are just absolutely amazing. and climbing on the Nisqually Glacier and then above it. And then it gets better and better and better. So these views looking south are just, there's something special. And the higher I go, I mean, just the more kind of energy I feel as I start reeling in this goal. And then an amazing moment happens where you start realizing, wow, like I am almost to the top. You're like, I can see the top. I'm going to walk. And it's like you're pinching yourself. You're living this dream as you reel it in, as you get a little bit closer. And there's almost nothing sweeter than capturing that moment. Around now, I filmed a little video saying I'm on top, and watching that back, it's you're pinching yourself. It does not yet feel real. Even though you've been working for a bunch of hours. This was 46 hours and 55 minutes between that first photo with my foot on the barnacle to now reaching the top of the mountain, and working a lot, either working or sleeping during all of that. It's tough, but here you are at the top, and then spending just a moment soaking it in. So I sat down, took a few deep breaths. I was feeling emotional in that moment of just this longtime dream now coming true. Here it is. And then I was so exhausted, I actually took a 20-minute nap on top. And I've never done that in my life. Usually not advisable, but this day, this is now August 7th, 2022. This is Sunday. And these are the best conditions I've ever had on the mountain. It's 37 degrees on top, which is the warmest I've ever experienced. It is almost no wind. It's like a 5 mile an hour, super, super gentle breeze. And it's near 100% visibility. And so it's absolutely amazing conditions. And I realize this is perfect. And this is the perfect way to experience it, to soak it up. In mountain climbing, though, you can get to the top. And in this case, it's a sea to summit run. So I officially clock out. You know, my clock is done. I've become the first Yahoo to ever do this, which feels amazing. But getting to the top is optional, and getting back down is mandatory. And so this is actually the beginning of now a really challenging next phase of all this, which is I got to get off this mountain. The sun is actually going down, and I'm several hours later than I initially intended to be, but it's I'm cutting myself a little bit of slack. It takes a while to run, 86 miles with a lot of climbing, but now I got to safely descend from the mountain. And there begins just an incredible journey down. And I encountered a number of folks on the way down who had heard about this guy trying to run from the sea to the summit. And they're just some wonderful folks that were saying, hey, do you need any water? Do you need anything to eat? Do you need a tent to crash in? And that was really, really sweet, as was trekking my way down slowly but surely back to the Paradise parking lot, give Savannah a big hug, my crew chief. We made it, and just basking in that moment and just soaking it up, because so often we could set big goals and we can have a big dream, and it's just, there's nothing sweeter than working with great people slowly and surely to make it happen. And walking back down to the Paradise parking lot with the Milky Way above, a deeply spiritual experience, and to really have those moments on the Nisqually Glacier, heading down and just reflect on just all this beautiful land we'd passed on the way up. Immense feeling of gratitude and just satisfaction on mission accomplished here. And that we ate the elephant one bite at a time, and here we are. So that is Rainier Sea to Summit in approximately 17 minutes and 54 seconds. I would also love to keep the conversation going. I share little reflections on my running on Instagram, Greg Runs Far. And then I would love to hear from you too, with my email there. And then we have some really awesome programming upcoming with the Nisqually Land Trust that I would love to actually connect with for those that are local. And there's a lot of ways to actually get involved to continue conserving this just amazing magical corner of the earth through the Nisqually Land Trust, which I'm excited to hear more about here in a moment with Jeanette. So I'll stop my little share there, and thank you for listening to my adventure story.
That is such an amazing story, Greg. I'm so excited that you were willing to come online with us and share it with us first. It's really inspiring. So I realized I meant to say this at the beginning, but just to tell people kind of how we connected. So Greg did this amazing run. I'd never heard of him. or the fact that he was about to attempt this amazing run. I had just gotten home from work on that Monday and had a long day at work, put my feet up, decided to scroll through my social media a little bit as I was winding down. And I come across this post about some guy who just ran to the top. And I was like, what did I read? And so I'm looking through the different posts. And I'm like, wait a minute. He just ran past a bunch of our properties and right through all of our work to protect the Nisqually watershed. I was like, I have to talk to this guy. This is amazing. What an incredible story. And so Greg was very gracious. I reached out to him and I said, do you realize what you were running past? And, and then he shared with me what he just shared in the presentation, which is that he actually, partially chose our watershed because of the fact that he was inspired by Billy Frank Jr. and the conservation work that we have been doing in the watershed for the past few decades. And so we just thought it would be a really fun nexus to be able to share his story and have people get inspired by that. And let me just share quickly, just to give people some context, I wanted to show you another map or two. Greg had a great map what did you use, Greg? Do you remember what you used to generate that map of where your run was?
Yeah, so I wear a Garmin GPS wristwatch, and I basically press go, I do my run, and then I can upload this automatic GPS routing. And this is a very, very special, it's an amazing place, and it is fun looking at where we traveled and these incredible photos of the land that you're preserving.
Yeah, so it's fun because he posted on one of his posts, he posted the map that got generated by the Garmin. And so I was looking and I was like, yep, that makes sense. And that is running right past our properties. So let me just show for a minute. My presentation is not going to be nearly as long as Greg's, but I just thought it would be fun to share just a couple here. So some folks are really familiar with this that are friends of the Land Trust, but this is a map of the Nisqually River watershed, including the marine areas and going up to Mount Rainier. And the Land Trust, our work is to protect fish and wildlife habitat, important lands that are important for fish and wildlife habitat throughout the watershed and South Puget Sound. And so 3 priority areas that we work. So there's the marine priorities where we are working to protect important shorelands and tidelands. And that's where Greg started his run at the Nisqually, Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, which is an important partner in the work to protect the Nisqually watershed. And then, let's see, actually, I didn't mean to go forward yet. So, then the middle part of the watershed, our big focus is on the Nisqually River and some of the important tributaries for salmon habitat. A lot of the work that we do is to protect salmon habitat along the river and the streams. When you get into the upper watershed, beyond the place that salmon go, then we also have been working to protect some of the forests up there as well. Just outside the park, between the national forest and the state forest, we have a number of forest lands that we have acquired and we are protecting. And so as Greg did his run, he ran right through a bunch of our priority areas. You can see actually this road here. So coming up here through Yelm and then cutting over on 702. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
I wonder if they can see my cursor. Okay. And then coming down Mountain Highway and through the Ohop Valley, and then going up all the way up to Paradise. If we look at the next map, this map shows the complex of protected lands in the watershed so far. There has been a whole partnership of many different organizations and agencies in the tribe that have, the Nisqually Indian tribe, that have worked together to protect some of the really important places in the Nisqually watershed, and the Land Trust is a piece of that partnership. And so you can see all the different colors are different different organizations that are protected land, from the national park, the wildlife refuge, and then a bunch of different owners in between. The Land Trust are the properties in red. So you can see how we hug the main river here And then we have some along the tributaries on Ohop Creek and Michelle. And then our forested area and the community forest that we created, where we're protecting and managing and stewarding those forests up there just in the foothills of Mount Rainier. But yeah, so Greg ran right past, right through our Ohop Creek properties, past some of our Nisqually River properties, and then past some of our forest protected properties as he was running up to the top of the mountain. So just to give you a sense of the scale, we've been around for about 30 years. And in that time, since 1989, when we were founded, we have contributed to the protection of over 10,000 acres in the watershed. Some of those we've passed on to partners, but some of those we just a little under 6,000 we still own and take care of. And so those are some of the properties that Greg ran by. So anyway, that gives those of you that aren't as familiar with the land trust a little bit of context there. So with that, Greg, tell us a little bit more about like what it was that inspired you to do this run.
Yeah. So first thing is just, wow. I'm learning a ton about the land trust today too. And while running, it's just like, this is so beautiful. You think to yourself, how is this so beautiful? Like, why isn't this just a ton of development on all sides? And I want to tip my cap. Like, this is absolutely amazing that y'all do what you do. And anyone that can, whether it's walking some of this, bicycling some of it, driving some of it, just experiencing this, because it is absolutely beautiful. And this doesn't happen by accident. I mean, it's absolutely pristine nature, and it's conserved in perpetuity thanks to your leadership. So I'm grateful for that, because it's absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that, my nieces can enjoy that. And we're going to Mount Rainier this weekend, and it, just really, really special. And thanks to the Nisqually Land Trust for all you do. I have two big inspirations with this. So number one, I love getting out in nature, and I love just experiencing it. It makes me happy, makes me smile. And I can thank, I think my family for that. I've been doing it since I was a little kid, with my overalls, heading into nature and climbing and swimming and running. I also, as I've learned more about the history of our region, I'm really inspired by folks who've stepped up to lead the charge to preserve our environment, because it doesn't happen by accident. It takes a lot of courage and conviction and dedication. And as I've learned the story of Billy Frank Jr., that was a big inspiration that I wanted to run through, the Nisqually Nation. And I wanted to just connect with these, wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful places. And that was big for me. My personal mission is getting young people connected to a bigger purpose and to movement and to becoming kind of front line of the future conservation. And I'm working with a new outfit, a new Washington nonprofit called Run Far Foundation. And we are all about youth mental health. And one way we do that is get young people moving. So little after school running clubs, and then actually working to conserve environmentally sensitive and really high value areas that can use a hand, volunteering to make their neck of the woods a little better and to help conserve. So was just delighted and inspired to get after it.
That's so great. Well, it's fun to hear you talk about your inspiration from Billy Frank Jr., because one of the things that we try to share with people, also people who are interested in our history, is actually the creation of the Nisqually Land Trust was inspired by Billy. It was actually initially his suggestion that was the impetus for our creation. So he was working with a number of folks in the Nisqually watershed. There was a group of people that had come together to talk about how everybody could work together to take care of this special place. And in those meetings, one of the presentations that they heard was from someone talking about the concept of a land trust. And he looked at our founder, George Walter, who was working for him at the time, and he said, "We got to get one of those." And so George said, "Okay." And then he figured out what it took to create a nonprofit and registered with the Secretary of State and found some folks to be on our founding board, and we became a nonprofit. So really, Billy was the reason that we were created in the first place. And the the Nisqually tribe has always been a critical partner in our work. And so we work very closely with the organization that Billy was working with at that time, that is the coordinating body for the work that we do in the watershed, called the Nisqually River Council. And so we are what's called one of the implementing organizations. So the Nisqually River Council brings everybody together, all the different organizations, agencies, citizens, to talk about how we're working together to take care of the watershed. And then we each have our own part of the puzzle that we're working on. And so the Land Trust, our job is to try and protect as many of those acres of habitat that have been identified as high priority, valuable habitat to protect the river and the fish and the wildlife.
Amazing.
For people. So yeah, so it's really fun. And it's fun to hear about your inspirations, both youth and conservation work, because it really ties in well with what we're doing at the Land Trust. We have lots of opportunities for people to get out onto our properties and help us. I mentioned we have almost 6,000 acres that we own and we're accountable for taking care of. Wow. And we can use help. And so one of those links that you put up in your last slide is about how people can go and look on our calendar. And I think we'll put it in the chat as well, where people can go to find out about volunteer opportunities. We have a work party every Wednesday morning, almost year round. There's only 1 or 2 or 3 weeks that we miss. And we're working on one of our properties somewhere in the watershed. And the type of work we do switches around depending on the season. Sometimes we're trying to take out invasive non-native plants that are threatening the native plants that we're trying to restore. In the winter season, we're planting trees in places where we need to restore the forest next to the streams in the river. And so those are the two big things that we do. And we have folks that come out year round to help us, which we are so grateful for. And sometimes in the winter, we also do Saturday work parties as well. We find in the summer people are busy and they don't tend to show up for our Saturday events if we try to schedule them. So we wait till we've got the tree planting, which is more popular also, and we do some Saturday events. So I'd love to talk with you more about ways that we can partner to get more people out to help us with that, and youth, because it is so important to get the next generation involved in understanding the importance of this, these natural places and how they can help take care of them.
No, absolutely. And, for me, we helped raise salmon in our little stream behind our school when I was in middle school. And that was my little origin story for, so much of what's to come. So I so appreciate what y'all are doing to mobilize, young and old and everyone in between, because it takes a village. I mean, this is a huge challenge. And I forget where I think I read on the website, over 80% of the target areas, now conserved thanks to your leadership. And I mean, it's remarkable. And I have a feeling we're just getting started too.
Yeah, it's a statistic we really like to share with folks because it's really kind of mind blowing, sort of like your run. But yeah, when we were founded back in 1989, for the length of the river that the salmon use, only 3% it was in some kind of protected ownership. And today we are at 78%. And that map that I popped up is it's a combination of publicly owned lands or acquired lands where those public owners have committed to keeping those properties in conservation. And then the Land Trust has been working to fill in the gaps in between. But to go from 3% to 78% is pretty incredible.
Yes, it is.
And it's, it's one of the reasons why the Nisqually is such an incredible example still of a largely wild, free-flowing river corridor that you don't see that much, especially in our, rapidly developing Puget Sound region. And that makes very good habitat for salmon and other wildlife.
Amazing.
So Greg, I'm thinking maybe we should pop over to the questions. I see that there's a couple questions.
Awesome.
Before we run out of time for this. So let me pop this up and see. I'll just read some of them out to you. So it looks like Samantha wants to know, how did you learn to maintain your, quote, a little bit better every day, quote, mentality? And are there ever any days where that mentality just doesn't work?
Yeah, thank you, Samantha. Rewinding. So I really wanted to be a great like baseball player growing up. My dream job was to be Ken Griffey Jr. So I told my mom when I was 5, and it didn't work out. I never grew up to be Ken Griffey Jr., nor to be that great at baseball, but it was a game that taught me a lot, including you can always make your swing a little bit better. I was a pitcher. You can always make your mechanics pitching a little bit better. And so I really, really tried to be the best I could be. It wasn't, in the cards for me to be a great baseball player. But when I started running, I took the same kind of mindset into just like every day, I want to be 1% better, and compounded out over a bunch of years that I've been doing what I do. It's pretty remarkable the progress you can make. It's how you go from 3% conservation to 78%. I think it's a lot of the same mentality. It's taking care of what's right in front of you, one step at a time. And I know that sounds super cliched, but it's definitely worked for me. To the second part of your question, there are days where it's like, I'm fed up with this. I want this to be easy. Why is this 1% so difficult today? And those are tough. And I've had a couple of those recently with probably juggling too much and all that. Those are the moments where, a few deep breaths and I try to remember my why. And, in this season of life, I'm really trying to get more young folks mobilized, active, engaged, because I think it's always hard being a teenager, never more difficult than right now between COVID, isolation, all the dislocation from that. And me and my colleagues run Far Foundation, we want to be part of the solution. And so I try to remind myself, why am I, pushing this, and why am I working so hard? And that usually is like the juice I need to then find that 1%. And as a coach long ago told me, keep showing up. There's magic in momentum. The hardest part's getting started. So keep showing up, and brick by brick by brick, we're laying the foundation.
That's great. All right. I've got another question here, Greg. This person's anonymous, so I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't know. But they wanted to know, how are the wildland fires in Washington affecting these areas that you ran through? And how is the smoke in Washington affecting your running routine?
Yeah, so I definitely not an expert on wildland fires. I will say, I recently ran on Highway 2 as I ran from Spokane to Seattle. A lot of that was along Highway 2. And there was just an evacuation order on Saturday. And a lot of folks have had property damaged, homes have been burned. And I'm hopeful no one was injured, although I haven't yet heard the latest. So it's affecting a lot of people. And as I talked with farmers and ranchers and folks, out there on kind of virtual homesteads, it's affecting a lot of these folks, and how, their well-being, obviously, when you're losing to the fire. So I'm, feel for those. And I hope our wildland firefighters can get under control, because there's a lot of fires burning right now, as Seattleites know from the last few days. The smoke can be bad. So, Saturday there was a lot of smoke in the air. I'm feeling it. My eyes are watering. I run every day. So actually today is day number 900 in a row that I've run at least 1 mile. And some days I cut the run shorter. And so Saturday was one of those examples. I ran about maybe 1.5 miles or 2 miles because I was like, look, my eyes are watering. Whatever benefit I'm getting from running, not that much compared to the cost of, breathing in a carcinogen. So cut it short. And that's kind of a mantra I have, is, keep showing up, but also got to listen to your body and listen to the environment. And especially if you have, a sensitivity to this, which a lot of us do, maybe I do with the watering eyes, take care of yourself too.
Yeah, that's great. All right, next question, another anonymous. How do you feel about the conversations regarding changing the name of Mount Rainier, giving Mount Rainier the native names given to it? Have you been thinking about this?
Yeah, so I'm coming around. So, I grew up calling it Rainier, so like that's what's been in my mind. But as I've learned more about, our indigenous neighbors and the natives who've since time immemorial have been stewards of the land, I think there's a very compelling logic, and I think in a lot of respects it's the right thing to do. So I'm trying to train myself, Salish C as opposed to whoever, Lieutenant Peter Puget and then Captain Rainier, whatever. These were people who spent a few days in a lot of cases, or maybe didn't even see the area that's been named for. Whereas, natives have called it Tahoma for a lot longer than Captain Puget or Captain Rainier. So yeah, I'm in favor of yeah, utilizing the native names. And I'm trying to teach myself. It's a hard habit to break, to be honest, but Tahoma is a beautiful name with beautiful significance. And I think it does the right thing to honor our native neighbors.
That's great. We've been talking a little bit about, as we get you more involved with the Nisqually Land Trust, one of our board members is a Nisqually tribal member, former council member, Hanford McLeod. And he's been involved in some of those conversations about Mount Rainier and naming. One of the things that's interesting, though, is that different tribes had different names for the mountain. So part of it is how do you resolve that? So I think that's part of the interesting conversation. We actually just did an update to our 5-year strategic plan for the land trust. And one of the things that we're planning on doing is working with the Nisqually tribe to see if there's any traditional place names that we should be using to talk about some of the different properties that we currently own, and using the original names for those places rather than the names that we've been giving them, which are usually the landowners that we purchase the properties from. So I'm excited about that conversation. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And it's a beautiful way to learn the history too. And you're right, there are several names, and I think that gives us way more appreciation. This was a wonderful place way before a British Commodore tried to claim it.
Yeah. Now let's see. I think that I saw, those are all the questions that were in the question and answer, but there is a few that are in the chat. So I'm going to try and multitask here and look over at the chat. So Gabe, who signed on in the beginning and let us know that he actually interned with us back in 2015. So super cool that he's able to join us, and he's watching from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he might, I will have to look and see, he might win for the distance and tuning in tonight. But then he's got a question about that he is getting into ultra running here in New Mexico.
Nice.
And he's wondering if you could provide a few key tips for an aspiring ultra runner.
I love it. Gabe, congrats. And thanks for all you do and have done for Nisqually Land Trust too. So my advice for an aspiring ultra runner is the same thing I tell my 7-year-old niece, Hannah. Have fun, follow your smile. And part of that is when you keep running fun, you're going to do a lot more of it. You're way less likely to burn out, to get injured. You're going to enjoy the process, because so much of, when you mention an 85-mile run and a bunch of climbing, that can feel totally impossible. I remember when someone described a 5K to me, it's like, whoa, 3 miles, are you kidding? It's all perspective, and we get that perspective through the process and kind of falling in love with the boredom that is long distance running. And so follow your smile, like keep it fun, find ways to make it fun. And simple things that I do with that: always a comfortable pair of shoes. If my shoes aren't cooperating, I don't want to run. If my shoes are comfy, it's like, this is great. I got to get a little massage for my feet, get to go out. And part of that's finding a beautiful place to run. You're in New Mexico. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I bet you've got lots of good spots nearby. Find a couple that you like, rotate them and enjoy it. And then I bribe myself with food. And so it's like, go to a big run, and then I get some key lime pie or some tacos. And that is that is the truthful answer of how I ramped up my training. Was, what delicious meal, super decadent, can I eat after doing this? And that's how I got into it. And then eventually you grow to enjoy this sort of mobile meditation. So keep it fun, follow your smile. And Gabe, I think that can help you with your goals. I know it definitely helps me with my goals.
I love that advice. I was going to say at the beginning of your advice that it was good advice for other things as well, like keeping it fun. But when you talked about rewarding yourself with large meals, that probably doesn't work as well unless you're doing massive runs.
Yes, I know. It's so some of this is universally applicable, but yeah, ultra runners, it's all about the fuel. And my buddy Andrew, who paced me, we joked because he has an entirely different diet than me. He's very disciplined about a lot of kind of paleo style, low carb, lots of good meat. And then I'm literally drinking milkshakes and burgers and things. So find what works for you. And that's I think that's true of no matter what you're trying to do, is have fun, keep smiling, and do what works for you.
There you go. Andrew, he didn't forget the milkshakes. Andrew is saying, don't forget the
Yes.
milkshakes. So now we have another question in the chat about actually your work with youth. So how do you and your foundation actually connect with young, vulnerable folks?
Yeah, so we started February 22nd, so we are brand new. Our preferred method is to, I said earlier, it takes a village, and we love enlisting adult mentors. And so that could be a teacher, that could be a faith leader, a coach, a community leader, a tribal elder. We're beginning to work now with each of those. And generally, there's either a nomination or there's a mentor that steps up saying, hey, I know this awesome teenager in my community, and we want to connect them. And so, our model is twofold. So I mentioned a little bit about the after school running clubs. We'd love to bring an after school running club to your community. We focus on reservations with tribal youth, and then kind of rural farmland, and then urban inner city communities as well. Many of which have been under-resourced, many of which actually don't have track or cross country or other running opportunities. So we want to be there to help folks. And these young people, as they go forward, after they've connected with us, they then do meaningful community service. And it starts with literally, as you're training with your running, you carry a trash bag. And I do this all the time. I've got my gloves, and actually I pick up some garbage. And here on Bainbridge and the Kitsap Peninsula, I've filled up dozens of garbage bags during these runs. And it's a meaningful feeling of, wow, we're cleaning up our community. And then from there, we have sparks of inspiration about other ways that we can be helping, whether it's planting native plants and trees, perhaps through a partner like the Nisqually Land Trust. It might be painting a mural, or even hosting a carnival like we had last week in Big Timber, Montana. I had the chance to see one of our youth in action, and it's extremely gratifying, giving young folks a way to channel some of the energy and enthusiasm you have in a really healthy direction, because there are a lot of ways young people can struggle, and there needs to be ways for us to channel that energy and enthusiasm. And so we try to connect through adult role models and mentors, and then get young people up and running. And then a lot of what we do is youth led. So actually it's youth's ideas, and then we support them the best we can with both mentorship and then with funding through micro grants to then make these projects happen.
That's so great. That's so inspiring and so important. As the mom of two teenagers myself, my daughter just turned 13, so now I have two teenagers. Wow. I know how important it is to have good role models and good opportunities for these kinds of activities, and especially in our underserved communities. That's really, really important. So thank you for doing what you do. Very inspiring. Yeah. I'm not seeing any other questions. And we are getting close on time. So I did want to make sure that we circle back to the other thing that you started to give a plug for, that so for folks that are in the local area that would like the opportunity to meet Greg in person, he is coming to our annual salmon bake. So the Nisqually Land Trust, for most of the time that we have been in existence, in the fall, in late September, early October, we've always had time for our supporters to get together and enjoy a salmon bake that is with salmon provided and cooked by the tribe. And it's a fundraiser, not a fundraiser. So it's just an opportunity for people to get together, to enjoy some good food, and to chat with each other. And then we usually do a little bit of a presentation to talk about some of our most recent accomplishments. And I will give a teaser that, so this year our salmon bake is scheduled on Sunday, October 2nd. From 4, look at that. And we've got it in the chat as well. So if you want to register, you can. It's going to start at 4 o'clock and go until about 7:30. And it's going to be out in the watershed at Wilcox Farms. Wilcox Farms is a longtime supporter of the work in the Nisqually watershed and the Land Trust. And they were, JT Wilcox was a founding member of our board. And they have a beautiful event barn up at the top of the hillside that overlooks the Nisqually River Valley and their farm. And some of our properties that are adjacent to the farm. And so they are making it available for a salmon bake this year. So we'll be gathering out there. But we do need people to register in advance. make sure we've got enough salmon for everybody. We need to know you're coming, and then you can get more details about the logistics of getting out there and that kind of thing. But Greg is going to be one of our guests there. And so he'll be available to chat with people, because there'll be lots of time for just chatting. And so if you're interested, check out the link in our chat, sign up, register, and we'll send you some more information. And it would be really fun to see you all out there at Wilcox Farms.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And yeah, I'd love to connect with folks, including Gabe from Albuquerque. Come fly in.
Yeah, fly in, Gabe. Come back and visit. We can have a reunion. But yeah, we will be making some fun announcements there. We're actually just recently closed on an important acquisition. We're getting ready to release some information about it soon. And then there may be another one, if all goes well, that we're closing on by the end of the month. And so we may have some really exciting news to share also for folks that come to the Salmon Bake and be able to see a little bit more about what we do and what our recent accomplishments are.
So awesome.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else, Greg, that you want to say before we wrap up for folks that are tuning in? Or we are going to post this as a hopefully as a recording afterwards, so that folks that weren't able to join us live will be able to watch this afterwards. But anything else about your foundation or how we're partnering or anything?
The final thing is a thank you. Really, really appreciate all that you do. As a runner, as someone that loves the outdoors, it's so magical that we do enjoy this. And it's thanks to it doesn't happen by accident. It's thanks to your hard work and your wonderful team. Jeanette, Jeff, Nikki, y'all are absolutely awesome. And thanks for getting us all together tonight. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
That's great. Thank you so much, Greg. And yeah, we always talk about in Nisqually, it takes a partnership. There are so many great partners. And the Land Trust is really grateful for the opportunity to be able to work with so many wonderful people in this watershed, and, to continue to have find new people like yourself that become new friends that can help inspire people and educate people about our work. And so again, really want to thank you for taking the time, doing this amazing run for the first place, choosing our watershed. And secondly, for being willing to work with us to share your story and hopefully inspire some people to join with us in taking care of this place. So, all right.
Thank you.
I think with that, I thank you all to attending tonight. Appreciate all your participation and your questions, or even just watching if you were just watching. And we'll hopefully see you out on the river. All right. Thanks. Good night.